I invite you just to allow the music and the reflective service to just kind of open your heart to be even more fully present as we come together. So there is an underlying order of the universe, and you and I are governed by that order. There are cycles in the seasons. There are cycles in the movement of the sun, the moon, the planets, the constellations, and the galaxies. And there are also cycles in our lives, just as there are in the seasons. And it's in your bulletin. It's Ecclesiastes. I believe it's 3. And everybody knows this because it was a popular song for so long. But to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And of course, if we look at this scripture, it goes on for quite a long time about all the different things that there is a time to do. So I'd like you, as we move into this talk this morning, to reflect about what is it time for you to do, and where are you in the grand scheme of things? Where are you in the cycle of life, and where are you in the timing of all things? Because the truth is, in our modern world, it can take us out of the underlying order that exists in the universe, because we may live by the clock rather than by inner promptings. Anybody? Where the clock seems to take possession of you and all the tasks and things that you need to do. And with our computers and with 24-hour lifestyle, we have lost touch, I think, with the night and with the movements of the day and the night, where, before electricity, when it was night, we sat around with candles, or we went to bed early, didn't we? We slept. And yet we seem to be so wired in that we're always on. And we live in a world where we must hurry up and get it done, right? Hurry up and get it done, or hurry up and get over it. I mean, come on, what is your problem? Hurry up and get over it. And when we're in a hurry, I think we lose sight of the divine timing that's pulsing through us, because we're too busy or too distracted to hear it. Because the divine timing, the divine order, is always pulsing through us. So this week is the autumn equinox, and it means that we're living in a period, a very short period, where the day and the night are equal, where they are in balance. And one way to use the seasons in our life, to reflect with them, is to look at our own lives and look at how in balance or out of balance are you with your life right now. Are you in balance? Is your work and play balanced in such a way that you nurture yourself? If you spend a lot of time behind a desk, do you then allow yourself time to get outside and walk or exercise? Are you balanced in giving yourself to others as well as giving to yourself, or being alone and being with others? And if not, what needs to change? So this is an opportunity to sort of stop and go, okay, we're in equal day and night right now. Am I equal in my life? Am I creating balance in all the ways that I possibly can? So the sabbatical that I have been on for the last 3 months has served, I feel, to bring balance back into my life. And I really want to thank the staff, the board, the congregation, and all of our guest speakers who were here, and you who were here over the summer. So I just would like to take a moment to thank Jim and Diane and Annie and Marilou, and I'm going to forget everybody, and Cindy and Aaron, Johnny, our lovely Johnny, and Gail, of course, and Susie, and I could go on, and yes, Gail's like, me. Anyway, thank you for holding this community, for really holding this, and everyone who has been volunteering, our chaplains, and everyone who has stepped forward. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. So I began the sabbatical by going to a yoga ashram up in Canada called Yosidara, and it's a wonderful place. And yes, it's a bit of a drive, but boy, it's like probably a 7-hour drive, maybe 8, but it's worth it. And it was just great to start with just some quiet, some meditation, some yoga. And then I hung out here for a while. I went and visited my son Jordan in LA, and I got to see where he works. He's working for a YouTube channel as a film editor, and he's just, it was so funny, the whole company is under the age of 24. Except for his bosses who are 32. It's like, and then it's in Burbank, and Jordan and I walked into Burbank for dinner, and I looked around the town, and I said, Jordan, I'm the oldest person in town. Not just in the restaurant, or I'm the oldest person in town. And he's like, deal with it, Mom, you know. And then I was able to go to Europe for a month, and I was on this pilgrimage to see all the ancient sites that I could see within a small period of time. So I went to Rome, of course, and saw the Forum and the Colosseum, and I saw where Julius, and you know, the Romans, they live with these ancient places like it's nothing. It's like they don't even notice it. And I went to the place where Julius Caesar was assassinated, and there's a bus stop there, and it's like, really? Really? You wait for the bus every day, and there's like, so what, you know? And I went to a little town called Passium, which was on the Mediterranean, and it has 3 large temples to Hera, Poseidon, and Athena. And they're huge, and they're still pretty much intact. And it just blew me away to be able to touch these ancient sites and to connect with these ancient peoples who have lived on this planet for so long. And I got to go to Assisi and Paris, and then it culminated in Oxford, England, where I attended a week-long seminar for astrology, and there were over 100 astrologers there from all over the world. It was amazing, and the place was just like Hogwarts, and I'm not joking. Absolutely. To find it, there was no address, there was no street sign, and there was no sign for Exeter College. And so I'm walking, and there's this big outline of a door, and then there's another door inside, but there's no doorknob. And you basically had to go and push the door for it to open, and it opened into this amazing courtyard with a church, and the dining hall looked exactly like, in fact, they filmed Harry Potter in that whole area. And I was like, wow, and found out that Tolkien went to school there, and he wrote the whole Middle-earth language. So everything that I had been like researching and studying, we went into it in a lot of depth into the archetypes and myths. And so you'll be hearing a lot about that as time goes on. I traveled with my girlfriend, Arlene, who was my tent mate when I was in Africa in 1974. And let me tell you, it's a little different traveling, because when we first traveled together, I was 20 and she was 32, and now I'm 62 and she's 74. And so hauling our bags around and things was a little bit different than it used to be. And it's also, I think, in traveling, there's a sense of you get turned upside down, because the things that we take for granted, like how does the laundromat work, right? Forget about it. I couldn't figure it out, and I needed help almost everywhere I went. I couldn't speak the language. And just basic, simple things are not there. And so it's great to be able to be in the moment and to recognize I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. Like in Italy, I got on the wrong train like a couple of times, going in the wrong direction. So anyway, I ended the trip by visiting Stonehenge. And Stonehenge, of course, is this ancient place. How many of you have been there? It's an amazing place, isn't it? And the stones track not only the movement of the sun, but the movement of the moon. And when we think of cycles, I think we naturally think of the moon. It waxes and wanes every 28 days, and every day the sun has its cycle. It rises, it sets, and we're seeing it move into a different place as the earth shifts. And we too have cycles, and when we become quiet enough to hear, we know when it's time to build up or to let go, as Ecclesiastes says. There are times in our life when we are on a path and the underlying order of the universe seems to be with us and pushes us along. Have you ever had those experiences where everything just lines up? You got the right people, you got the money, you got the place, like everything's just flowing, right? And those are wonderful moments when we feel as if we're being pushed along. And then there's other times when we're on a path and the underlying order of the universe knocks us off the path that we're on. Anybody ever have that happen to you? And what you find, once some time goes by, is that movement, that being knocked off the path is actually getting knocked onto another path and getting knocked onto the right path. And it certainly may not feel like the underlying order when it happens. And it may sometimes feel like, God is out to get us or something. But the truth is, when we get knocked off a path like that, it's our soul that is aligning itself with the order of the universe. An example, when I was in my 20s, I worked at a law firm. And one of the attorneys, who was 30, was offered a partnership, which is a big deal. It's a big deal to be offered a partnership in a law firm. And he was trying to decide whether to do it or not, and he started to have migraine headaches. And I'm talking crippling migraine headaches, where I'd walk into his office and he'd be laying on the floor. And I'd have to call his wife, and she'd come get him and take him home. And so we started talking about what was going on. And I said, so, what about the partnership? And he says, Karen, the truth is, I really don't want to be a lawyer. He said, I sort of went on this path because it was expected of me by my parents, and I know that I should be very happy and lucky and fortunate that I'm being offered a partnership. He goes, but I don't want to be a lawyer, and it was in Chicago, and I don't want to live in Chicago. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, if I could do anything, I would move to the Southwest and I would open a B&B. And I'm like, why don't you do it? And you know how that is when someone says that to you and you first say, but I can't. And you come up with 10 million reasons why you can't. And he thought about it. Really, going to law school and then letting that go. So long story short, he quit. He moved to the Southwest. He opened a B&B, and his B&B ended up being like on the historical register of his town. And he was able to practice law from his home and continue to do that. So it was as if the universe was saying to him through a migraine, is that, look, this path that you're on, you're at a crossroad here. You're at a point where you can make the decision to commit to this and to continue on this road, even though it doesn't fit your soul, or you can just give it up and you can go down another road. And he did, and the migraines went away. So one of the questions that I have been dealing with, and I ask of you, is, can we interfere with the underlying order of the universe? Can we interfere with this underlying order? And there's two schools of thought about this. The first school of thought is that whatever has happened was meant to happen because it did happen, right? And arguing with this reality or wishing that it was different is futile, right? So we are where we are because we're supposed to be here, because we're here. Where else are we going to be? But I do believe that we can interfere with the underlying order of the universe, both personally and globally. I think when we don't listen to the inner promptings, it may show up like a migraine headache. And guess what? We can continue to ignore it, right? How many times in your life have you gotten that inner prompting and you're like, nah, it's fine, go away, I'll be fine. And we can go on like that for years, can't we? So we can interfere with that underlying order of the universe. I think that we have interfered with the underlying order of the universe by being instrumental in creating climate change. And a new order has been put into place. And the truth is, we are where we are. It is what it is. But what do we do now with that? Because this is our starting point, right? Wherever you are, this is your starting point. So we're in a place where there are droughts, there's fires, there's hot temperatures, there's violent weather patterns. Holly, who has been here for years and moved to California, her town lost 500 houses in the Northern California fire. Her house was spared. But we're seeing more of this. We're seeing the violent weather patterns, and we can wish that it was different, right? But it is what it is. Right now, this is our current order, whether we like it or not. So the question is, how do we move forward? How do we cooperate with the underlying order of the universe, which ultimately is love and good? And this is the task that lies before us. This is the task that lies before the people of planet Earth. So what do we do? That's the question. I didn't find the answer while I was away in Europe, sorry. But, we start where we are and we take those steps. And so today, after brunch, Michael Stillwater, who we are so blessed to have here, he has been singing and performing and leading for 30 years, 40 years, a long time, 50 years. Never mind. But he's leading us in a ceremony this afternoon at 1 o'clock. So you have time to go have brunch downstairs, and it starts at noon. So you have time to go have brunch downstairs and go to his ceremony at noon. And it focuses on the blessing each of us bring to the world, and that we're each an integral part of the universe. But what is ours to do? And he can say more about that later, but that may be a question that you're struggling with right now. Like sometimes the problems are like, yeah, what am I supposed to do? But you have a part, otherwise you wouldn't be here right now. Every single one of us has a part to play in this grand universe, in this underlying order. And as we listen and as we start to move forward, I believe that we can heal this thing. I believe that we can heal our lovely Mother Earth. So, as we are on a personal level, I invite you to get in touch with the underlying order in the universe through creating spaciousness. And I think, again, it begins like with this ceremony this afternoon. I invite you to allow yourself to just be and not have to do something. So the night is coming, right? The days are balancing, but guess what? The night's going to win. Persephone's going back down into the underworld. And, and invite in the winter. Invite in the night. Invite in the darkness. Instead of being on the computer or the television, sit in front of the fire with a book or light candles and just sit in the darkness. Because we're entering into that time of year where night defeats the day. It's an opportunity to be still and to be present. So everything has a cycle. And where are you right now in this grand cycle? Are you in the building up or the taking down? Are you in the crying or the laughing? Wherever you are, it's a dance and it keeps moving. Are you called to be quiet or out in the world? And if you're called to be quiet, but your job is out in the world, then find spaces to be quiet. Listen to the inner promptings that are serving to put you on your soul's path. And if you get knocked off, God's not out to get you. It's simply the soul realigning itself and the order. So, there is an underlying order of the universe, and you and I are governed by it. To everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. May we fulfill that purpose under heaven. Michael.